Daniel Carter stood at his post near the outer docking bay and watched the ships come and go. He had been working security on Horizon's Edge station for 3 years now. It was quiet work. He checked credentials, walked patrol routes, and made sure no one caused trouble. Most days nothing happened at all. He was 42 years old with gray starting to show at his temples. His military days were behind him. Now he was just another human contractor doing simple jobs for alien diplomats who barely noticed he existed. That was fine with him. He had learned long ago that being invisible was often safer than being seen. The alarm changed everything. Red lights flashed across the docking bay. Daniel grabbed his radio and listened to the chatter. A Valoran delegation had arrived without warning. Their ships were damaged, some kind of attack. The station commander was scrambling to accommodate them. Daniel knew a little about the Valorans. They were an old species, proud and powerful. Their empire stretched across 100 star systems. But lately, the news feeds have been full of whispers about civil war. Something was breaking apart inside that ancient empire. He stayed at his post and watched the Valoran ships dock. They were beautiful vessels, long and elegant, but he could see the burn marks on their hulls. Someone had tried very hard to destroy them. Hours passed. Daniel finished his shift and was heading back to his quarters when a Valoran guard stepped into his path. The alien was tall and slender with pale blue skin and eyes like polished silver. He wore armor that looked like flowing water frozen into metal. "You are Daniel Carter," the guard said. It was not a question. "That's me. You will come with me. The Queen wishes to see you." Daniel blinked. "I think you have the wrong human. I'm just outer perimeter security. I don't deal with dignitaries. There is no mistake." "Follow me." Daniel thought about refusing, but something in the guard's voice made him curious and maybe a little concerned. Why would a Valoran queen want to see him? He followed the guard through corridors that grew more elegant as they walked. The station had given the Valorans their finest guest quarters. Armed guards stood at every door. Daniel counted them out of habit. Whatever was happening, the Queen was taking no chances. The guard led him into a private chamber. The room was dimly lit with soft blue light. In the center stood a woman who could only be the Queen. She was tall like all Valorans, but age had bent her shoulders slightly. Her skin was a deeper blue than her guards, and her silver eyes held a weight that came from centuries of life. The Valorans lived a very long time. This queen had probably ruled before humans even reached the stars. "Leave us," she said to the guard. Guard hesitated. "My queen," this human said. "Leave us." The guard bowed and departed. Daniel stood alone with the Queen. He was not sure if he should bow or salute or do nothing at all. "You are confused," the Queen said. "Good, that means you are honest." A man who expected this summons would have prepared his face better. "Your Majesty, I don't understand why I'm here." "No, you do not." She walked slowly around him, studying him like a specimen. "My scholars have written many reports about humans. They call you Deathworlders. They say your planet is a violent place full of predators and disasters. They say your species is young and reckless and unimportant." Daniel said nothing. He had heard all of this before. "My scholars are fools," the Queen continued. "They see only what they expect to see, but I have watched humans. For a long time, I have seen how you fight wars, yes, but I have also seen how you protect. You're young. How you run into burning buildings, too. Save strangers, how you stand against impossible odds for those you love. She stopped in front of him, her silver eyes looked into his. I am dying, Daniel. Carter, the sickness has been in my blood for years. I have months left, perhaps weeks. And my empire is tearing itself apart. There are those who would use my death to seize power. They do not care about my people. They care only about themselves. I'm sorry, Daniel said. It seemed inadequate, but he meant it. I do not need your sorrow. I need your help. She turned and gestured toward a doorway. Come. Daniel followed her into an adjoining room. There, sitting on a cushioned bench, was a young Valoran girl. She looked up when they entered. Her eyes were silver like her mother's, but they held fear instead of weariness. She was trying to hide it, sitting straight and keeping her face calm, but Daniel recognized the mask he had worn it himself as a boy, pretending to be brave when he was terrified. This is my daughter, the queen said, Princess Lyra. She is young by our standards. In human terms, she would be like a child of 12 years. Hello, Lyra said. Her voice was soft but steady. Hello, Daniel replied. The queen placed her hand on Daniel's arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. The nobles who want power will come for her. If they control Lyra, they control the empire. They will use her as a puppet and discard her when she is no longer useful. I cannot let that happen. Your guards, my guards, answer to the court. I do not know which of them I can trust anymore. The queen's voice cracked for just a moment. I have spent my whole life trusting my own people, and now at the end I find I cannot trust any of them. She pressed something into Daniel's hand. He looked down. It was a small metal seal covered in symbols he did not recognize. This is the royal seal of the Valoran Empire. It grants absolute authority. With this, you become Lyra's legal guardian. Under our law, no one can take her from you without breaking that law, Your Majesty. I can't. You can. You will. The queen's eyes burned into his. I am asking you to protect my daughter, not because you are the strongest warrior or the cleverest strategist. I am asking you because you are human, because your kind protects children even when it costs you everything, because you do not abandon those who depend on you. Daniel looked at the seal in his hand. Then he looked at Lyra. The girl was watching him with desperate hope in her silver eyes. Take care of her, the queen said. Please. Daniel closed his fingers around the seal. He thought about all the reasons to refuse. He was just a contractor. He had no resources, no powerful friends, no army. He was nobody, but there was a child who needed protection, and her mother was begging him to help. I will, he said. The queen let out a breath she had been holding. For just a moment she looked like any mother would, relieved and grateful. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Lyra stood up from the bench. She walked over to Daniel and looked up at him. She was trying so hard to be brave. I will not be trouble, she said. I promise. Daniel knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. You're not trouble. You're just a kid who needs to be safe. And I'm going to make sure that happens. He did not know how he would keep that promise, but he knew he would die trying. Daniel sat in his small quarters and stared at the royal seal in his hand. The weight of it felt heavier than it should. Just hours ago, he had been a nobody. Now he was responsible for an alien. Princess Lyra sat on the edge of his bed. She had not spoken since they left her mother's chambers. Her silver eyes moved around the room, taking in the bare walls and simple furniture. Daniel's quarters were not impressive. A bed, a desk, a small bathroom. Nothing like the palace she had grown up in. I know it's not much, Daniel said. But it's safe for now. It is fine, Lyra replied. Her voice was quiet and polite. I do not require luxury. Daniel could see she was still wearing her mask, the brave face that hid the frightened child underneath. He remembered doing the same thing when he was young. His father had left when he was 6. His mother had worked 3 jobs. He had learned early that showing fear only made things harder. Are you hungry? He asked. Lyra hesitated. I do not wish to be a burden. That's not what I asked. Are you hungry? She nodded slowly. Yes. Daniel went to his small food station and looked through his supplies. He had simple things: bread, dried fruit, some protein bars. Nothing fancy, but it would do. I don't know what Valorans eat, he admitted, but I'm guessing bread and fruit are safe. Yes, we eat similar foods to humans. He made her a simple plate and brought it over. She took it carefully and began to eat. She had good manners. Every movement was precise and elegant. But he noticed her hands were shaking slightly. You can relax here, Daniel said. I'm not going to judge you for being scared. Anyone would be scared in your situation. Lyra stopped eating. She looked at him with surprise. My teachers always said that fear is weakness. A princess must never show fear. Your teachers sound like they never had to run for their lives. Daniel sat down across from her. Fear is normal. It keeps you alive. The trick is not to let it control you. She thought about this for a moment. Then slowly her shoulders dropped. Her face softened. She looked less like a princess and more like a scared kid. I'm very afraid, she admitted. I do not want to die. I do not want my mother to die. But I think bad things are going to happen anyway. Probably, Daniel said honestly. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure those bad things don't happen to you. Why? Why what? Why do you care? Lyra tilted her head. We are not the same species. You owe nothing to my mother or to me. You could give me to the nobles and receive a great reward. Daniel considered the question. It was a fair one. Because your mother asked me to help. And because you're a kid who deserves to be safe. That's enough for me. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then something changed in her eyes. The suspicion faded a little. She went back to eating her food. Daniel let her eat in peace while he figured out their next move. He contacted an old friend, Megan Tors. She worked in station intelligence and owed him a favor from years ago. She answered on the second ring. Her face appeared on his screen, looking tired and worried. Daniel, I heard the Valorans arrived. What did you get yourself into? I need information, Megan. There's a noble named Catherine. What do you know about him? Megan's expression darkened. Ambassador Catherine. He's bad news. Leads a faction that wants to take over the Empire. Word is he's been hiring mercenaries. Professional killers. Are they on the station? Probably. We've seen some suspicious arrivals in the last few hours. Daniel, what's going on? I can't explain right now, but I need to get off this station. Quietly, Megan was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. There's a human freighter leaving tomorrow morning. The Carolina Dawn. Captain's name is Henry Cole. He's old school. Doesn't ask questions if you pay him. Enough. Thanks, Megan, I owe you, just stay alive, you idiot. The screen went dark. Daniel turned to find Lyra watching him. We are leaving, she asked. Yes, tomorrow morning. We're going somewhere safer. Where? Human space. My people's territory. Catherine won't be able to touch you there without causing a major incident. Lyra nodded slowly. She finished her food and set the plate aside. I have never been to human space, she said. My teacher said it was primitive and dangerous. It's not as fancy as what you're used to, Daniel admitted. But it's home. They spent the rest of the evening preparing. Daniel packed what few supplies he had. He gave Lyra some of his clothes to wear. Instead of her royal garments, she looked strange in a human jacket. That was too big for her, but she would blend in better. He made a bed for her on the floor with extra blankets. She did not complain. Daniel, she said as he turned off the lights. Yeah, thank you. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. He was right about that. The attack came at midnight. Daniel heard them before he saw them. Footsteps in the corridor. Too quiet to be normal. He grabbed his weapon and moved to the door. Stay behind me, he whispered to Lyra. She obeyed instantly, pressing herself against the wall. The door burst open. Two figures rushed in, weapons raised. Daniel did not hesitate. He fired twice. The first attacker fell. The second managed to shoot back, but Daniel was already moving. He tackled the mercenary and drove him into the wall. A quick strike to the throat ended the fight. Silence filled the room. Daniel stood over the bodies, breathing hard. His arm was bleeding where a shot had grazed him. He turned to check on Lyra. She was still pressed against the wall, her silver eyes wide with shock. But she was unharmed. Are you okay? Daniel asked. She nodded, unable to speak. Daniel knelt beside her. His blood dripped onto the floor, but he ignored it. I'm sorry you had to see that, but I need you to stay strong for a little longer. Can you do that? Lyra swallowed hard. Then she straightened her spine and nodded again. Yes, I can do that, good girl. They could not stay here now. Daniel grabbed their supplies and led Lyra through the back corridors of the station. He knew these paths from years of patrol work. They avoided the main areas and made their way toward the docking bay. The Carolina Dawn was waiting. Captain Henry Cole stood at the boarding ramp, a grizzled man with weathered skin and sharp eyes. He looked at Daniel's bleeding arm and the frightened alien girl behind him. You the passengers Megan called about. That's us. You bring trouble with you. Probably. Cole scratched his chin. Then he shrugged. Long as you pay, I don't care. Get on board. We leave in 10 minutes. Daniel guided Lyra up the ramp. As they entered the ship, she looked back at the station. Somewhere in there, her mother was preparing to face her enemies alone. Will I see her again? Lyra asked quietly. Daniel wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her everything would Be fine. But he respected her too much for that. I don't know, he said honestly. But I know she loves you. And she wanted you to live. That's why we're here. Lyra turned away from the station and walked into the ship. She did not look back again. The Carolina Dawn lifted off and flew toward the stars. Behind them, the station grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared. The journey had begun. The Carolina Dawn was not a beautiful ship. It was old and worn with rust on the walls and engines that groaned when they worked too hard. But it was solid and reliable, and Captain Henry Cole knew how to fly it. Through the darkest corners of space, Daniel and Lyra settled into a small cabin near the back of the ship. It was cramped with 2 narrow bunks and barely enough room to stand. But Lyra did not complain. She seemed almost fascinated by the simple, rough nature of the vessel. This is very different from Valoran ships, she said, running her fingers along the metal wall. Our ships are smooth and clean. This one feels alive. It's got character, Daniel agreed. That's what Captain Cole says anyway. The crew of the Carolina Dawn was small. Just 6 humans besides the captain. They were cargo haulers, traders, and wanderers. None of them had fancy educations or important titles. They were working people who lived one job at a time. At first they were nervous around Lyra. Most of them had never seen a Valoran up close before. Her blue skin and silver eyes made them uncomfortable. They whispered among themselves and kept their distance. But Lyra was curious about everything. She asked questions about the ship, about their work, about Earth and human culture. Her genuine interest slowly broke down the barriers. By the 3rd day, the cook was teaching her how to make simple human meals in the galley. Daniel watched her stir a pot of soup, her face focused with concentration. She had flour on her cheek and her royal manners had been replaced by something more natural. She looked like a regular kid learning to cook. You're doing great, the cook said. His name was Larry, a big man with a loud laugh. Most humans can't make soup this good on their first try. Thank you, Lyra said. She tasted the soup and smiled. It needs more salt, see. You've got good instincts. Later that evening, Daniel found Lyra sitting by a small window staring out at the stars. He sat down beside her. You seem happier, he said. I am learning, she replied. Humans are very different from what I expected. You are kind to each other in small ways. You share food and tell jokes and help without being asked. That's just how people are. Not Velorans. We are formal and careful. We follow rules and traditions. There is beauty in that, but also coldness. She turned to look at him. Why do humans trust so easily? Daniel thought about the question. Maybe because we don't live as long as you do. We only have a short time, so we can't afford to waste it being suspicious of everyone. Lyra considered this. That is both sad and beautiful. Most things about humans are. She laughed softly. It was the first time he had heard her laugh. The sound made something warm spread through his chest. Over the following days, Daniel taught her other things. He showed her how to play card games. He told her stories about Earth, about the forests and oceans and mountains. He explained human history, the wars and the triumphs, the terrible mistakes and the moments of incredible courage. You have fought many wars, Lyra observed. Against each other, not against aliens. Yeah, we weren't always good at getting along, but you learned. Mostly, we still argue a lot. But we figured out that fighting each other just makes everyone weaker. So we try to work together now. Lyra nodded slowly. The Veloran Empire has always been united. We thought that made us strong. But now we are tearing ourselves apart. Perhaps unity means nothing if it is built on fear instead of trust. That's pretty wise for a 12-year-old. I am older than 12 in Veloran years, but I'm counting human years. She smiled at him, a real smile, not the polite mask she had worn when they first met. The peace did not last. On the 8th day of their journey, the ship's alarms began to scream. Daniel rushed to the bridge with Lyra. Close behind him, Captain Cole stood at the controls, his face grim. Through the front window they could see a massive ship dropping out of faster than light travel. It was a Veloran warship, sleek and deadly, its weapons already glowing with power. They found us, Cole said. Daniel's stomach tightened. Can we outrun them? Not a chance. That thing is 3 times our size and 10 times our speed. A communication signal came through. Cole opened the channel. The face that appeared on the screen was narrow and cruel. Ambassador Catherine. Human vessel, Catherine said. You are carrying stolen property belonging to the Veloran Empire. You will surrender the princess immediately. She's not property, Daniel said, stepping forward. And she's not going anywhere. Catherine's eyes narrowed. You are the human, the one the dying queen trusted. He laughed, a cold and empty sound. How pathetic. She could not find a single Veloran loyal enough to protect her daughter. She had to beg a primitive Deathworlder. Call me what you want, the answer is still no. Then you will die. All of you. Captain Cole cut in before Daniel could respond. Now hold on a minute. You fire on the ship, you're firing on human citizens in human space. That's an act of war. We are not in human space yet, Catherine said smugly. This is neutral territory. No one will know what happened here. Word has a way of getting out, Daniel said. You kill a human freighter to kidnap a child, every human in the galaxy will hear about it. We have long memories, Ambassador. And we don't forgive people who hurt our own. Catherine hesitated. Daniel could see the calculation happening behind those silver eyes. The ambassador wanted Lyra, but he also needed political support. A massacre of humans would not help his cause. You cannot protect her forever, Catherine said finally. The queen is dead or will be soon. The empire belongs to those strong enough to take it. Eventually, you will have to sleep. You will have to look away. And when you do, I will be there. Then I guess I won't look away. Catherine stared at him for a long moment. Then the screen went dark. Outside the window, the warship turned and jumped back to faster than light. The bridge was silent. Then Lyra let out a breath. That was too close. Cole turned to Daniel. You made a powerful enemy today. I've had worse. Lyra touched his arm. Her silver eyes were filled with something between fear and wonder. You stood against him. He could have killed everyone on this ship and you did not back down. That's right. Why? You barely know me. You have known these people for only days. Why risk everything? Daniel looked at her. Then he looked at Captain Cole and Larry. And the rest of the crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his answer. Because that's what humans do, he said. We don't give up on people. Especially not kids. He put his hand on Lyra's shoulder. Your mother understood that. That's why she trusted me. Because she knew I would never stop fighting for you. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. For a moment she looked like she might cry. Then she threw her arms around him and held on tight. Daniel hugged her back. He could feel her trembling against him. But there was also strength in that embrace. She was learning to trust. She was learning to hope. Thank you, she whispered. For everything. We're not done yet. Daniel said. We've got a long way to go. But we'll get there together. The Carolina Dawn continued its journey. Through the stars. Ahead of them lay human space and safety. Behind them lay enemies who would never stop hunting, but for now in this moment they had each other. And that was enough. New Carolina was a quiet world. It had rolling green hills, small farming towns and skies that turned orange and purple at sunset. The colony had been established 50 years ago by people who wanted a simple life, away from the noise of the core worlds. It was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors and doors were left unlocked at night. Daniel had contacts here from his military days. A retired sergeant who ran a small repair shop. A medic who had become a country doctor. Good people who asked few questions and valued loyalty above all else. He and Lyra settled into a small house on the edge of a town called Miller's Creek. It had a garden in the back and a porch where they could watch the sunset. It was nothing like a palace, but Lyra did not seem to mind. Months passed. The war in the Valoran Empire became distant news, something that happened far away to other people. Daniel enrolled Lyra in the local school under a false name. He told people she was his adopted daughter from an outer colony, and no one questioned it. Humans came in all shapes and colors these days, and the blue-skinned girl was unusual but not impossible. At first Lyra struggled. Human children were loud and chaotic. They ran around and shouted and broke rules. It was very different from the strict education she had received in the palace. But slowly she adapted. She made friends with a girl named Sophie who loved books and a boy named Marcus who was obsessed with building robots. They did not care that she was different. They only cared that she was kind and curious and willing to share her lunch. Daniel watched her change. The formal princess disappeared, replaced by a regular kid who complained about homework and begged for dessert. She laughed freely now. She ran through the fields with her friends. She came home with dirt on her clothes and stories about her day. One evening she found Daniel sitting on the porch alone. He was staring at the sunset with a distant look in his eyes. What are you thinking about? She asked, sitting beside him. Nothing important. She gave him a look that said she did not believe him. She had gotten good at reading his moods. You are worried, she said. You think they will find us? Daniel sighed. There was no in lying to her. She was too smart for that. They'll never stop looking for you. Catherine needs you to legitimize his rule. As long as you're free, you're a threat to him. Then why did we come here? Why not keep running? Because you can't run forever. Eventually, you have to stop somewhere and make a stand. He turned to look at her. And because you deserve a chance to be a kid, even if it's just for a little while. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned against his shoulder. This is the happiest I have ever been, she said softly. In the palace, everything was rules and duty and expectations. Here I am just myself. I did not know that was possible. Daniel put his arm around her. You're worth more than your title, Lyra. Don't ever forget that. The news came 3 days later. Queen Seraphina was dead. The report said she had passed peacefully in her sleep, but Daniel doubted that. The civil war had escalated. Multiple factions were fighting for control of the empire, each one claiming to be the rightful government. And Catherine had won. He had declared himself regent of the Valorn Empire. He claimed that Princess Lyra had been kidnapped by human criminals and promised to rescue her and restore order. The propaganda was spreading across the galaxy. Some believed it. Others did not care as long as the fighting stopped. Daniel knew what this meant. Catherine would be coming for them. It was only a matter of time, and he was right. 2 weeks after the announcement, a Valorn shuttle landed outside Miller's Creek. Ambassador Catherine stepped out, surrounded by armed soldiers. They marched into town like conquerors. Weapons ready, faces cold. Daniel met them in the main square. Behind him stood the people of Miller's Creek, farmers with pitchforks, shopkeepers with old hunting rifles, the town doctor with a baseball bat. They were not soldiers. They were ordinary people who had never fought a real battle in their lives. You found us, Daniel said. Catherine smiled. It was the same cold smile from the communication screen. Did you truly believe you could hide forever? The Empire has eyes everywhere. Your little colony was never safe. What do you want? You know what I want. Give me the princess and your people will be spared. Resist and everyone in this pathetic town will die. Daniel looked at the soldiers behind Catherine. They were professionals, well-trained and well-armed. His people had no chance against them in a straight fight. A voice spoke up behind him. We're not giving her to you. Daniel turned. It was Claire Dawson, the mayor of Miller's Creek. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a face like carved stone. She had lived through hard times and come out stronger. That girl is one of us now, Claire continued. She goes to school with our children. She helps in our gardens. She's family. And New Carolina protects its family. Catherine laughed. You would die for an alien child. A creature that is not even your species. She's a child, Claire said simply. That's all that matters. Other voices joined in. The farmers, the shopkeepers, the doctor. One by one, the people of Miller's Creek declared that they would not surrender. Lyra, they would fight. Daniel felt something swell in his chest, pride, gratitude, love for these people who barely knew him but were willing to die for a girl who needed protecting. You're making a mistake, Catherine warned. My soldiers will crush you. Maybe, Daniel said, but we're going to make you pay for every inch. The standoff lasted through the night. Catherine pulled his forces back to set up a perimeter around the town. He would attack at dawn when his soldiers could see clearly and his advantages would be greatest. Daniel spent the night preparing. He organized the townspeople into groups. He set traps along the main roads. He fortified the central buildings and created fallback positions. It was not much, but it was something. Lyra found him in the town hall studying a map of the area. "Let me go to him," she said. Daniel looked up sharply. "What if I surrender? He will leave. These people alone. They should not die for me." Lyra, no. "Why not?" Tears were streaming down her face. "They are good people. They have families and dreams and lives. Why should they sacrifice everything for one girl?" Daniel knelt down in front of her. He took her hands in his. "Listen to me. Your mother asked me to take care of you. That means more than just keeping you alive. It means teaching you something important." He looked into her silver eyes. "You are worth fighting for. Not because you are a princess. Not because you have some political value. You are worth fighting for because you are you. Because you are kind and brave and good. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. But these people made their choice. They're not fighting because they have to. They're fighting because they believe. You matter. Prove you matter. That's what humans do. We stand up for each other. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Lyra wiped her tears. Her jaw tightened with determination. "Then I will fight too," she said. "I will not hide while others die for me." Daniel smiled. "That's my girl." Outside, the first light of dawn was breaking over the hills. In the distance, Catherine's soldiers were moving into position. The battle for Miller's Creek was about to begin. The attack came with the sunrise. Catherine's soldiers advanced through the fields in perfect formation. They had energy weapons that could burn through walls and armor that could stop bullets. They were trained killers who had fought in a dozen wars. Against them stood farmers and shopkeepers with old rifles and stubborn courage, but it should have been a massacre. It almost was, but Daniel had prepared well. The first wave of soldiers walked straight into traps, ditches covered with thin boards, tripwires connected to alarms, bags of flour that exploded into white clouds, blinding the attackers and ruining their targeting systems. Colonists fired from hidden positions. They did not try to win. They just tried to slow the enemy down, make them pay for every step forward. When one position became too dangerous, they fell back to the next. Daniel moved through the chaos like a ghost. His military training had never left him. He directed the defense, plugged gaps in the line, and took down soldiers who got too close. His arm was bleeding again from a wound he did not remember getting, but he kept fighting. Lyra stayed close to Claire Dawson in the town hall. The mayor had refused to evacuate. She said if the town was going to fall, she would fall with it. Through the windows, Lyra watched her new family fighting for her. She saw Marcus's father take a shot to the leg and keep firing. She saw Sophie's mother dragging wounded people to safety. She saw the town doctor stitching up injuries with steady hands while bullets flew around him. These humans were not warriors. They were ordinary people with ordinary lives, but they had chosen to stand against impossible odds because a girl they barely knew needed help. Lyra had never seen anything like it. The battle lasted 3 hours. By the end, half the town was burning. A third of the defenders were wounded. 5 were dead. Catherine's forces had taken losses, too, but they kept coming. They were pushing into the center of town now. Victory was close. Daniel found himself back at the town hall making a last stand with a handful of survivors. His ammunition was almost gone. His body was battered and exhausted. But he would not stop fighting. Then Lyra stepped past him. "Lyra, get back," she ignored him. She walked out the front door of the town hall into the open street. Catherine's soldiers stopped advancing, confused by the small blue figure walking toward them, dot in her hand. She held the royal seal her mother had given Daniel. She raised it high so everyone could see. "My name is Lyra Valora," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried across the battlefield with perfect clarity. "I am the daughter of Queen Seraphina. I am the rightful heir to the Valorn Empire." She activated the seal. It began broadcasting on every Veloran frequency, reaching every ship in orbit and beyond. "Ambassador Catherine has declared himself regent. He claims I was kidnapped. This is a lie. My mother gave me to this human because she could not trust her own people. She was right to do so. Catherine murdered his way to power. He does not care about our empire or our people. He cares only about himself." Catherine's voice crackled over a speaker. "Kill her. Kill her now." But the soldiers hesitated. They were Velorans. They had grown up hearing stories of the royal line killing a princess who was broadcasting to the entire empire was something none of them wanted on their conscience. Lyra continued speaking. "I've spent months living among humans. I have seen how they treat each other. They are not the primitives our scholars described. They are kind and brave and loyal. They protect those who cannot protect themselves, even when it costs them everything." She gestured at the ruined town behind her, at the wounded defenders still clutching their weapons. "These people owe nothing to me. I am not their species, not their family, not their responsibility. But when Catherine came for me, they stood in his way. They fought and bled and died for a child they barely knew. Because that is who they are. That is what true strength looks like." Her silver eyes found Daniel in the crowd. He was leaning against a wall, barely able to stand, but his eyes were shining with pride. "My mother chose a human to protect me, because she knew humans would never up. She was right. Daniel Carter has been more than a guardian to me. He has been my teacher and my friend. He taught me that I am worth fighting for. Now I understand that everyone is worth fighting for." She turned back to face Catherine's forces. Her voice grew harder. "I call upon all loyal Velorans to reject this false regent. Join me and we will build an empire based on trust instead of fear. Join me and we will make peace with humanity and learn from their example. Join me and no child will ever again be hunted by those who should protect her." For a long moment, nothing happened. The battlefield was frozen. Then, in orbit above New Carolina, something changed. One of the Veloran warships broke formation. Its captain appeared on the broadcast frequency. "Princess Lyra, this is Commander Velson. Of the Starlight Blade, I served your mother for 60 years. I will not serve her murderer." The ship's weapons turned away from the planet. "My crew stands with you." Another ship followed. Then another. Within minutes, half the Veloran fleet had defected. They turned their weapons on Catherine's ground forces, trapping them between the loyalist ships above and the stubborn colonists below. Catherine tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Daniel caught up with him and knocked him to the ground. "It's over," Daniel said, pressing his knee into the ambassador's back. "You lost." Catherine snarled and struggled, but he could not escape. The soldiers who had followed him were surrendering. The battle was finished. Lyra walked over and looked down at the man who had hunted her across the galaxy. Catherine glared at her with pure hatred. "Your mother was weak," he spat. "And you are weaker. You will never hold the Empire together." Lyra considered him for a moment. Then she shook her head. "My mother was not weak. She was wise enough to know when to ask for help. That is something you never understood." She turned away from him. "Take him away. He will face justice before our people." The soldiers dragged Catherine off. Lyra stood in the middle of the ruined town, surrounded by humans and Velorans alike. Everyone was looking at her. She was 12 years old, covered in dust and smoke, wearing borrowed human clothes. She did not look like a queen, but she had just saved a planet. She had just started a revolution. And she had done it by telling the truth about what she had learned from a species her people had always dismissed. Daniel limped over to her. His wounds were catching up with him. He would need medical attention soon. "That was some speech," he said. "I learned from you." Lyra smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "I have to go back now, don't I? To my people. To the Empire. Yeah, they need you. Well, you come with me." Daniel hesitated. He had spent his whole life among humans. The Veloran Empire was a strange and complicated place. He did not belong there, but Lyra was looking at him with hope in her silver eyes, the same hope he had seen on the night her mother asked him to protect her. "Your mother told me to take care of you," he said slowly. "I guess that job isn't finished yet." Lyra's face lit up. She threw her arms around him just like she had on the ship months ago. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. Thank me when you've actually fixed your empire. We've got a lot of work to do." Years passed. The Veloran Empire transformed under Queen Lyra's rule. She made peace with humanity and opened trade and cultural exchange between their species. She reformed the old laws and built new institutions based on trust instead of fear. It was not easy. There were setbacks and challenges and moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. But she never gave up. Daniel stayed by her side through all of it. Not as a servant or a bodyguard, but as family. He watched her grow from a frightened girl into a wise and compassionate ruler. He watched her change an empire. One evening, many years later, they stood together in the palace gardens. Lyra had just finished a difficult negotiation with a stubborn trade council. Daniel was older now, his hair fully gray, but his eyes were still sharp. "Do you ever miss it?" Lyra asked. "New Carolina. The simple life." Daniel thought about the question. "Sometimes. But I made my choice. No regrets." Lyra smiled. "My mother chose well when she chose you. She chose someone who would never give up on you. Any human would have done the same. Perhaps. But you were the one who was there." She took his hand. You taught me what it means to be worth fighting for. You taught me what it means to fight for others. I would not be who I am without you. Daniel squeezed her hand. In her silver eyes he saw the scared little girl he had met on a space station long ago. He also saw the queen she had become. Your mother asked me to take care of you, he said. I think I did okay. Lyra laughed. You did more than okay. You changed the galaxy. No, Daniel corrected her. You changed the galaxy. I just helped you believe you could. They stood together in the garden, watching the bioluminescent flowers sing their soft light into the darkness. Two people from different worlds who have become family. That was the human way. And now, thanks to dying queens, desperate trust in a bodyguards, stubborn loyalty, it was becoming the Veloran way. Some bonds transcended species. Some families were chosen, not born. And some children were worth the entire galaxy. Lyra had always been one of them. Daniel had simply been the first to see it.